Yeah, One Punch Man Season 3, Episode 5 has left me speechless. Not in a good way, by the way. I don't even know what rates would I give this episode because, to be frankly honest with you guys, I left this episode feeling completely disappointed. I can tell you that the one thing that One Punch Man Season 3 has excelled at was the art, right? But in this episode, there were times where the art looked very bad. I'm not sure if you guys know this, but an animator that goes by the name of Mr. Vanoba, who has done very good sequences like the one from Yuji vs Chozo fight in the bathroom, has been hyping up this episode for 5 days straight on X. Clearly very passionate about himself getting involved in One Punch Man's production. Now, he does have this one sequence that looked marginally better than everything in the episode, but the sequence itself, it's decent, but it's not really that high level. It's not really something you expect from One Punch Man, to be honest, and I'd even argue that previous episodes, the cuts made by Aoki are much better and perfected than this one. Now, don't get me wrong, the episode does move, and much more than the previous ones, and the art sometimes just looks much better, especially when Garu meets with Gero again. But in my honest opinion, and I've been someone who supported the show during episode 1, 2, and 3, this episode is just not it. The two fights that really matter, they really butchered them in this episode. Now, let's talk about what they did right and what they did wrong from start to finish. So, the first thing that I really noticed is that they really cut corners when it comes to the fight between Garu and the 3 demon level monsters. So, in the manga, Super Mouse sneaks Garu with a punch, Garu dodges it, and Super Mouse ended up damaging the wall. This is very important because after, in the anime, they show that the wall is actually damaged, even though we didn't see that happening in the anime. So, how did the wall get damaged? But anyways, after he dodges Super Mouse, he actually knees Unihorn in the face and then gets attacked by Shower Head. Now, if you want to remove some scenes, it's fine, but make sure to remove the after effects that resulted from these scenes. They also straight up removed the combined attack between Unihorn and Super Mouse, where Super Mouse picks up Unihorn and throws him towards Garu, and Garu just deflects him towards Rover. The way it was done in the anime was kinda weird, where Garu just kicks Unihorn towards Rover. Instead, in the manga, he smashes him with the kick through the wall. I've also seen people waiting for this scene to be adapted, and I'm sorry, they just didn't adapt it. Now, the art should have been much better than this when it comes to Garu saying that he's a dragon level threat, as this is a very crucial moment in the story. You sometimes find these artistic pieces that are really well done when it really doesn't matter in the story, but something like this should have been refined much more. Now, when it comes to the next scene, which is Garu going up against Rover, the fight does move, right? Animation does exist, but the animation is not that good. At this point, I suggest for you guys to go and read the fight in the manga because it just feels much more, it feels strong, if you know what I mean. It feels much more impactful. But in the anime, I'd say it's average, it's good, but it's not what One Punch Man deserves, you know? So reading the manga gives you a better feel, in my opinion. Now, the next scene doesn't really have any problems aside from removing one crucial scene from the manga, and I'm talking about Gero and Garu's conversation about near-death experiences, right? So in the anime, they did remove this whole panel, and then they removed this one figure from this scene. And I'm guessing they removed this character because it's kinda spoiling something. It's kinda spoiling a reveal in the future, which I feel like is a normal decision because in the manga, when that reveal happened, people weren't really surprised, but I'm guessing it's a good idea to not reveal it yet so that people would be surprised about it in the anime. It just would hit much better, to be honest. So in contrast to people who does have a problem with it, I feel like it's a perfectly good decision. Now let's talk about this panel right here, which is Garu saying it's time to hunt. It's something that a lot of people were waiting for it to be adapted. And why do you have this neon effects on this really precious scene from the manga? There's absolutely nothing to defend this at this point. And it's not just the neon effects, to be honest. The scene just didn't breathe. It's a very important scene for Garu's character and they just brushed it off like it's nothing. At this point, it's not just animation and movements. Characters do move and they do have animation in this episode, but it's a problem of production choices. I mean, just an hour before the episode released, a YouTuber that goes by the name of Mark Raymer has dropped a fan animation of of this specific scene, and it's just much better than the anime. Again, it's not just about the animation, it's the importance of some scenes that needs to be highlighted more than the others. Now, the next thing we see in the episode is Garu going up against Orochi, and do I think it's bad? No. Do I think it's really good? I don't think so. I think it's average at best. The best part indeed was Van Oba's part, and I think it's well animated, but the problem is the texture. It's lacking texture, and the compositing is bad when it comes to this fight, in my opinion, except for the fire that looked really well because they combined between 2D and CG. It looks good. All I'm saying is that this fight deserved much better than what we've got, and there are a lot of people in the community that believes that this is up there when it comes to the best fights in One Punch Man. But they should have animated it really well. I know it's not a studio problem, it's a committee problem, and it's a shame, but this fight right here, alongside with the previous ones and all of this season, deserved much better. Now, spoiler alerts for those who are anime only, we're gonna be talking about predictions for next episode. So the next episode, they're definitely gonna cover chapter 93 in its entirety and then some pages of chapter 94. Chapter 94 is considered as one of the longest, if not the longest chapter we've had in One Punch Man. I'm guessing that they're gonna end the episode with Evil Eye showing up to fight against Tatsumaki. So ultimately, the first part of the episode is going to contain heavy dialogues, and the second part is going to contain some interesting stuff of the heroes closing up to the Monster Association hideout. As I said, I'm guessing the episode is going to end with Evil Eye showing up and Tatsumaki ready to scrabble with him. Chapter 93 is actually a very long chapter with 70 pages full of dialogues and conversations. So for those who thought that episode 4 is the last of season 3 that has a lot of dialogues and conversations, they're completely mistaken. But nonetheless, these conversations are going to be very important to understand the characters, how they think and how they operate. So I suggest you guys to start following what's being said rather than just checking if animation or movements exist, right? I mean, we know that we're dealt a shit hand and One Punch Man deserves much better, but at least try to understand the story, right? Or by this point, just go and enjoy the manga and read it because it does feel like animation by itself. So final verdict, do I think the episode is bad? No. Do I think it's good? Absolutely not. I feel like the problem here is not just animation, movements, and pacing, I think it's the production choices. I did like that they got rid of the opening to include all of the fights here, even though they cut corners in the first ones, but the fights unfortunately were not that impactful and they feel extremely rushed. And I gotta say that this definitely doesn't give me hope for future fights. If two very important fights were handled this way, I don't think future fights are gonna be all that. I mean, maybe the last fight of the last episode, they're gonna try to do a much better job because it's the last impression, just like Blue Lock did, but I'm keeping my expectations very low, unfortunately. But anyways, until next time, please take good care.